Hello and welcome along to the Winners Enclosure St Ledger podcast and preview. Looking ahead to a cracking card at Doncaster on Town Moor at the weekend. Unfortunately, no crowds there for the Ledger as we were expecting. Allowed in for one day and then the local council have shut things down once again. So there won't be race fans for the Ledger, the final classic of the season at Doncaster. But hopefully we can find some winners. There's some brilliant action in Ireland this weekend as well. It's Irish Champions weekend, of course, so plenty of good racing and betting opportunities there as well. But we are focusing, for the purposes of this preview, on that card at Doncaster for the St Ledger. And joining me to preview all the action and try and help us find the winners is my brother and Racing TV colleague, Timeform reporter as well, Martin Dixon. How are you, Mark?
Yeah, all good, thanks, Chris. I've enjoyed it so far at Donny this week. It's been good racing, but it does get better as the week goes on, doesn't it? It's one of those festivals where the last day is very much the marquee day. It's the standout, isn't it, in terms of quality? It does ramp up a little bit as the week goes on, but Saturday's a really good day's racing. Not only the Ledger, the Portland's a fantastic sprint handicap as well. Very unique, the 5.5 furlong trip in the Portland. It's always a race that I like. I think it does suit certain horses, and there's always an angle in there. The Park Stakes is good as well, so we look forward to it all.
Yeah, we will. We're not going to obviously talk about Irish Champions weekend particularly, but looking forward to that as well, and I suppose particularly seeing Gaya line up in the Irish Champion Stakes 4:10 on Saturday afternoon. A field of 6 going to post for that, and he's just been a hell of a horse to watch this year.
He's brilliant. I mean, he's really come of age. He's always had that latent ability, Gayath, but he's shown consistency. He's shown it every time in an unbeaten campaign so far this year, hasn't he? And he's just matured into a brilliant racehorse. And Gayath, for those that aren't aware, a couple of weeks ago raised to the highest rated horse in the world ratings, wasn't he? So that just underlines what a talent he is. It'll be good to see him.
Certainly does. We're going to get into looking at the St Ledger in a moment. Just a reminder that you can visit the Winners Enclosure app, the Winners Enclosure website, for the latest offers with your bookmakers for opening new accounts, other offers that'll be on there as well. Tips from the fellas at the Winners Enclosure as well. Lots of previews, lots of news, and there's some exclusive content from trainer David O'Mara as well, with his thoughts on his weekend runners. So well worth going on to either the Winners Enclosure app or website for all of that. We're going to start this St Ledger meeting preview with a look at the Ledger itself. That's the race that we're going to really delve into now before looking at the Portland, and then we'll skim over the other races a little bit as well. Let's start with the Ledger then, as I say, Mark. At the top of the market, we have got a horse called Pile Driver. And Pile Driver was very impressive in winning at York on his most recent start. Can't really knock him on the basis of that great voltage a win. He absolutely tanked through the race. He cleared away to win by 3.5 lengths. He's top price 3-1 at the time of recording. We're recording this on Thursday evening, so prices may change a little bit from what we're saying, but they're not going to change drastically. Got to say, I think he's a bad favourite. Couldn't have him on my mind at all at that price. I don't think he'll stay. I think he'll pull too hard, and I don't think he'll get home. And I think he's an absolutely horrendous favourite.
Fair enough. Well, fair enough. I mean, I must admit, I'd have stamina doubts. I mean, it was a good performance at York. It was a good performance. He's a horse with a lot of ability, and he could make up into a Group 1 horse based on the manner of the win at York. But it wasn't in a strongly run race, was it, over 1.5 miles? It was just shy of 1.5 miles, good ground at York. And they didn't go that quick, and he showed a sparkling turn of foot, and Martin Dwyer gave him a good ride, I thought, because he got him switched off out the back of the field, settled much better than he did in the Derby, and was able to use his asset, really, which was his turn of foot. But the Ledger isn't that type of race, is it? He might even be a horse that's more likely to drop back to 1.25 miles than go up to 1.75 miles. And I think we're singing off the same hymn sheet here, but you sound as if you're sort of almost more against him than I would be, Chris, to be honest with you. But yeah, I have stamina doubts. I think there will be stronger stayers, and for that reason I'd want to take him off.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. As soon as he was being spoken about, I was working the day that he won the Great Voltager, and there was chat about the St. Leger. I'm just thinking, no way. I can see why they're trying it, because it's the last classic of the season. Their alternative is to go to France for the Grand Prix de Paris, and if he was to do that, he'd probably be going on to softer ground. He'd have to go into France, and if you look back to last year, his only start on soft ground, he didn't run as well as he had done in that listed race at Newbury on his debut, probably. So I guess they'd have maybe had that in their mind. And as I say, I can see why they're going for it. But I just think he's a horse that, if he's going to prove Group 1 animal, which I think he could, then it'll be when he races over a mile and a half, or as you say, even over a mile and a quarter. And usually a St. Leger winner is bred to stay, and he's not really bred to stay.
No, it's a race won by stayers, isn't it? He's not bred to stay. He definitely is a strong, exuberant traveller, isn't he? You know, on a couple of occasions this year, he's pulled a little bit too hard on the times that he's been beaten, and that is a worry, because the pace, even if there's a front runner like Subjectivist in there that'll get them strung out, you know, it's if you're even just a little bit keen, and you're a slightly doubtful stay, you don't get away with it in a race like the Leger. You know, it will be a different. I think it will be a different tempo of race, because it's a classic. You've got a horse like Subjectivist in there, who Joe Fanning is on record actually as saying, when he ran down the field in the Voltager, he was kind of irritated at himself for not going quick enough on it, not making the race enough of a test. And he didn't make that mistake at Goodwood the next time, where he just set a good even tempo out in front and romped him in the March Stakes, didn't he? So I think Joe will be keen to, you know, he's the likely front runner, and he'll want to make it a better test than he made the Voltager, and he's got a bit further to go as well.
Yeah, he has. For danger of going on and having more egg on my face, I suppose. I just think Pile Driver, if he goes steady, he'll pull too hard. And if they go an end-to-end gallop, he might not pull too hard, but he just wouldn't stay in a well-run race over a mile and a quarter. So I think either way he's up against it. Santiago is the other one that's right there at the top of the market with him. Now, he is a proven stayer. We know that he does it because he did it already at Royal Ascot when he won the Queen's Vase. He then went on and won the Irish Derby. The Irish Derby, in truth, this year is worth a hill of beans, isn't it? It's not particularly good form. And then he's not managed to progress when he went up to 2 miles at Goodwood against the older horses, but he was behind Stradivarius, and he wasn't disgraced behind an absolute top notcher, only beaten a couple of lengths. So he's sort of matched his form there. He's kind of levelled off where he's at, but we know that he stays, and there's a possibility that there's more to come. So I wouldn't have a massive problem with him.
No, a big ride with Frankie Dettori as well gets the leg up, doesn't he, for Aidan O'Brien, looking for a classic win for Coolmore and Ballydoyle. So that's an interesting angle there with him. He's solid. He'll run well, won't he? It's just a case of whether there's a better horse in there, essentially. I think, you know, he's not. Yep. I don't think he's an absolute top notcher. He's not like some of the Ballydoyle horses that have won this in the past. But he stays well. He's honest, genuine. He's not put a foot wrong really all season. You can't really knock him for the Goodwood Cup run. He's going to run well, but he's not an each-way price, and I think he's that type of horse where I would be reluctant to take too skinny a price about him, because I don't think, if you're backing him at 11 to 4, 3 to 1, you've got to be thinking he should be 2 to 1 at least. And to be honest, I couldn't sort of chalk him up any shorter than he is.
No, I think if you want to go down that form line and have an each way bet, you'd be better off with his stablemate, who might be a little bit tricky, Dawn Patrol. But he charged home in the Irish Derby behind him. I mean, he was the massive eye catcher. He came flying down the outside, didn't he? And then he's gone on and won on the back of that. Nothing special about his win at Naas. It was just a maiden at 8s on, and that is his own win.
He made hard work of it, to be fair.
Yeah, he was just idle, and he's probably a bit tricky. He probably needs him to get racing a long way out and come late. But just thinking from an each-way point of view, is Leopardstown third on his next start, which is put down as a bit of a disappointment. The horse that won that came out and won the other day at Doncaster. Pista won the Park Hill. So you're sort of looking at it and thinking it's not a terrible run in its own right. He's going to need to progress, but I don't particularly fancy him. I'm just thinking that if you like Santiago, he hasn't got a huge amount to find with him, and sometimes these O'Brien horses can just do something that he didn't expect, and maybe if they got racing a good way out, it'd suit him. But yeah, sort of gone off on a little bit of a tangent. Hookham is the next horse in the market, so we may as well go to him before we get to anything that we might sort of fancy among the bigger prices. Hookham, who's a half brother to Casbarn, Harold horse. He's really progressing, isn't he? And Owen Burrows is having a hell of a season.
Yeah, he's having a good year. Won his last 3 starts. Won the Geoffrey Freer. Beats some older horses. Well, beat another 3-year-old into second. I don't know what that's worth, if I'm being honest. What sort of race was that? I think
not great.
A few of the established ones didn't run the race, did they? It was muddling. They didn't go that quick. He was very impressive the way that he picked off the front runner, because Max Vega was second. He dictated a slow tempo, and Hookham came and picked him off very easily. It was an impressive win. He's going to have to essentially run faster than he's ever had to run before to win a race. He won a handicap off 90, and then he's won another slowly run group race. He's shown a lot of ability to do it. Very different type of race, I think, the Ledger will be for him, in a similar way to what it'll be different for Pile Driver as well. But
the top of the market just looks real dodgy, I think.
Yeah, look, I'd take a chance on English King. I still think he's a good horse. He's obviously. I mean, he should be a stayer, shouldn't he? Yeah, he should be a stayer. He's got lots of stamina.
He's bred to be a stayer. He looks a stayer, and usually, if they're bred to be a stayer and they look a stayer, they are a stayer. So, given that he hasn't had a chance to do it yet, I mean, he knocked the eye out with the way that he shaped in the Derby, didn't he? He was really impressive in the Lingfield Derby trial. That form might not be fantastic or anything, but the time was pretty good and he was impressive. Then he went to the Derby and he knocked the eye out with the way they shaped. And Goodwood, for whatever reason, he's run below form. But, sometimes horses just do run below form. And a track like Goodwood, even though he'd handled Lingfield, you kind of give him a pass. And I just think that he's an absolute knock to improve for a step up in trip.
Yeah, fair enough. I to be honest, I'm looking at we're doing this on Thursday night. He's 10-1. He's been nibbled at in the market. I can't see that price lasting at all.
Yeah.
I wouldn't
a bit of form as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he went off, 5 or 6-1. To be honest, he could easily go off half the price that he is on Thursday night. Now, whether people see this in time, I'm not sure, but I do think he's a horse with a genuinely good, solid chance in what, to be honest, is an open race. There isn't a standout horse in there.
No.
I'd probably have had a Hookham favourite, I think, on just the manner of the Geoffrey Freer win. You have to have Santiago right there in the betting because he's very solid. He will run his race. And if he runs to his previous form, it might be good enough. But English King is the horse in there that, I mean, he's beaten the same horse as a few of the others, hasn't he? Berkshire Rocco, who also takes his chance. He's a very, very consistent horse, but he's just not a top notcher. English King hammered him in the Lingfield Derby trial. Now, Santiago beat him also at Royal Ascot, and Pile Driver had him in behind in the Great Voltigeur as well. But English King was every bit as impressive in beating Berkshire Rocco at Lingfield as the others have been. And his best form in that run and the Derby run, with where he was value for extra, are as good as anything else in the field. And yet you're backing him at the moment, if anyone can get it, he's a 10-1 shot, isn't he? So either way, he should be in the first sort of 3 or 4 in the market, bottom line, and he's got a very good each way chance.
Yep, he'd be the one that I'd comfortably top of the list. The other horse that I kind of thought I'd probably want to have a few quid on is Galileo Chrome, who's just really improving quite quickly at the moment. Galileo Chrome for Joseph O'Brien, and he might just have a little bit more to offer. He's just progressed with each start. He went from a maiden to a conditions race to a listed race. He's kept on winning. He's got a good solid pedigree, and he looks like he should be okay over the trip. He won over 1.5 miles at Navan last time out in a bog, so I've not really got any problems with that. The time of the Leopardstown win was pretty good over 10 furlongs. So I think at 6-1 he's got a chance as well. But to me, English King each way is probably the bet in the ledger.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, we haven't talked about this before, but I agree with you. So.
Yeah. Right. So that's the St. Ledger. Remember, you can go onto the Winners Enclosure app or website to get the selection from the lads at the Winners Enclosure. They might well have a preview of sorts on there as well. I'm sure there'll be the latest news ahead of the Ledger on there. Also, let's move on to the Portland. This is the kind of race that we like betting on a Saturday afternoon, Matt. Big field sprint handicap and 5.5 furlongs. You don't get too many 5.5 furlong races. And right at the start, you were saying it's sort of a bit of a unique test for that reason, because there's only a few of them, sort of the good quality handicaps that you get over this trip. There's the one at York at the Ebor meeting, and there's this, and that's, in terms of actual 5.5 furlong races, really good ones. That's probably about it. It's something that suits a Moment of Madness really well. He was sixth in the race off a £4 higher mark 3 years ago. He won it 2 years ago. He was second last year behind Oxted, who went on to win a July Cup the following season. So he was kind of up against it that day. And I'm pretty sure that they've had this as his target all year. He looked like he was coming back to form last time out. He's on a good mark. And I think he's drawn in the right spot as well. He's right behind the pace. You've got quite a few front runners. They're drawn in stalls 1, 8, 9, 13 and 16. And he's drawn in 10. So he's right in where that pace is. And I suspect that he's been laid out for the race. So if anyone said that they fancy him for the Portland, I don't think I could say there's a massive negative to him. He's a 7-1 shot, so he's been well enough found.
Yeah, exactly. You know, he does look like he's been laid out for it, doesn't he? But yeah, I must admit, I don't think it's been missed by any means, has it? You know, 7-1, second fab behind Soldier's Minute. It is wide open. Mick Appleby rung me on Wednesday night, and he was having a chat and said to me he'd secured the services of Ray Dawson for Danzino, claiming £5 off. He was pretty chuffed, I think, to get Ray on board, who used to be with the yard at one point in time. He's really good value for his £5 claim, and an older horse like Danzino could just benefit from that few pounds off his back. I think he'll run well. Donny should suit him. He's holding his form well this season. He's definitely a horse you'd want to back each way. He doesn't do that much winning these days, does he, Danzino? But still got loads of ability, and I think he's quite interesting with the £5 claim. I wouldn't be surprised if Just Another Bottle ran a big race as well for Kevin Ryan. He's had a very light season. Just in the back of my mind, they'd given him a couple of months off after his good run at Ayr in June. And he probably ran it as if he did run as if he needed it when he finished behind Acclaim the Nation in a race a few of these contested at York last month. And he's a horse with some really good form in the past. Was second, just nailed late on in a Stewards Cup a couple of years ago. There's a little bit of I think the jury's probably out as to whether he quite retains all of that ability, which he will need to. But if Kevin Ryan's done a bit of a job on him, now he's second, he's only having his fourth start for Kevin Ryan, Just Another Bottle. He is the sort of horse that if he bounced back to his best, he's got a really good chance. But look, it's wide open. Just Another Bottle, I'd take a bit of a punt on it, a bigger price without having a strong view on the race. Yeah,
he was third in the race 2 years ago as well, off a £5 lower mark, but he's competitively enough handicapped, and I like again the fact that he's got a bit of form in the race. The favourite is Soldier's Minute. He's come back to form on his last couple of starts, and that York second last time out is a strong bit of form. So not really got a problem with him. I just think he looks short enough. I think a Moment of Madness should actually be clear favourite for it. Arecibo ran well in the race last year off a higher mark, but he just doesn't find anything. He's one that you could back if someone's sort of doing 5 and 6 places to maybe get into the frame, but there's not that much point because he probably won't win, will he?
No, he tends not to, doesn't he? So yeah, as I say, it's not a race I'd be all over this year necessarily, but I thought Just Another Bottle might be worth taking a punt on. And Danzino will run well, I think, with Ray Dawson taking the £5.
Yeah, I'd certainly put those three into a pretty strong shortlist. Just another bottle Danzino and a moment of madness. I think I'd probably go a moment of madness and a bit on Danzino. Don't think 70 is a terrible price. As you go down it, there starts to be a few of them down the bottom of the weights that I just don't think their form is quite deep enough. It's probably not quite as competitive. I mean, you shouldn't really be getting in a Portland off the kind of mark that horses are getting it in off it this year. I don't think you wouldn't have done in the last couple of years. I don't think so. Yeah, I'm going to go a moment of madness and Danzino, those two in the Portland. We're going to move on to a couple of group races quickly, Mark. We'll start with the Park Stakes. 8 of them declared to go to post for this. It's one that I quite like in this race, but we'll discuss the very front of the market with Limato and One Master first of all. Limato, old boy, 8 years old. He won this 5 years ago, did Limato, but he showed that he's as good as he ever was, really, when he bolted it. It was really impressive, wasn't he? Despite being really easy to back when you were at Newmarket earlier in the season, and being fresh is probably a good thing for him, isn't it?
Yeah, I wasn't quite there. I was sat in my living room.
Oh, yeah, of course you were.
But yeah, I was talking
about it.
I was talking about it on the TV. It was great. Was that performance from him? I think he's got to have an excellent chance again. They wouldn't want it to rain, but I don't think it's gonna. The ground shouldn't be too testing. That was a run when fresh earlier on in the season, wasn't it? First time out, and Henry Candy had him absolutely spot on for it. Adam Kirby was on for the first time. He got on really well with him, gave him a peach of a ride. The setup looks ideal. Looks as if Marie's Diamond shines so bright, breathtaking look will ensure there's a good gallop, probably a very strong gallop. And I just think that Limato's got loads in his favour and will go very close, to be honest. Now, whether 5-2 is a fantastic price about him when you've got One Master, winner of the Prix de la Forêt the last couple of years, and a horse like Wichita with Group 1 form this season in there. Whether it's a fantastic price, I don't know, but I couldn't sort of fall over myself to say he should be 6-4 or anything. But he has got an excellent chance. The run of the race should suit him. Track suits him. He looks like he has clearly been laid out for the race since his winning comeback run, whereas a few of the others have been quite busy. And worthy favourite for me, Limato. I hope he goes and gets the job done.
Yeah, One Master is second favourite, obviously. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with Limato other than sort of his price 5-2. I thought he was sort of well enough found. Couldn't make him a massive amount shorter. One Master proved that she doesn't need easy ground at Goodwood, for all that she has produced her very best performances on good or good to soft, maybe. She's absolutely fine. She won't have a problem with the conditions. Bit underwhelmed by her performance at York last time out, but maybe the run of the race didn't suit her. I thought that Wichita was quite interesting, just because he's a horse that I think could still be on the up. His first 2 runs of the season are really good efforts, aren't they? He's just touched off in a Guineas behind Kamiko. I know Kamiko has been beaten a few times since, but he would have been second, maybe one, probably second in a Sussex subsequently. And Pinatubo was in behind him. Seen how well Pinatubo went on and shaped in France the other day. He's a Group 1 winner since. And then he's third in the St James's Palace behind Palace Pier, who's been pretty much the leading 3-year-old miler so far this season. And Pinatubo, who, again, as I mentioned, that form in France showing that he's still got it all. I think that's a really good run. His next 2 starts are at a track that I've mentioned already, not all horses like, and then over a shorter trip on his most recent run in the Prix Maurice de Guiche, wasn't it, that he ran in last time out. So I think you've kind of got a couple of excuses for him, and you now got him over 7 furlongs, which might not be ideal. He's better over a mile. But if they go hard enough, I think he'll be able to travel and hold a position, and he might just run well. So he was kind of the horse that at the prices I like the look of, because I think
fair
those
enough.
two bits of form at the start of the season are really strong, and they give him a good chance.
I'll stick Willimarto, but it's a good race anyway. Molatham, the Jersey winner's in there as well. But
the Jersey form isn't really worth much, is it?
No. I'll stick with Amato. I think he's got everything in his favour. So hopefully he's got a little bit too much pace for Wichita.
Yep. The 150 second race of the day. That's the other group race on the card. The Champagne Stakes for the 2-year-olds. Some really nice horses in this. I thought that Al Bashir looked a really nice horse when he won on debut here at Donny. He quickened up like a really, really smart type. He won by 6.5 lengths that day, and couldn't be much more impressed with a debutant, really.
Tell you what, Owen Burrows has got some tools in his yard this season, hasn't he? Hookham, Minzal, and you've got this fella, Al Bashir, as well. Not to name a few of the others as well. He's got some other progressive horses in the yard. He did. Yeah, I mean, he did absolutely bolt up. Chindit is the horse that he's currently, as we speak, not favourite. And
probably the best form.
As impressive as Al Bashir was, and he definitely was, undeniably, there is no question that Chindit is has the best form. He won the listed race at Ascot in July. Took his record to 2 from 2. We've not seen him since. He beat Curve, who won the Stonehenge Stakes next time out, a listed race. He was second. Naval Crown was third, who went on to win the Convivial Maiden at York and then was third in a group race at the weekend in France. And in fifth was St. Lawrence, who has won a listed race at Newbury since. So the second, third and fourth have all won their next starts, and in good races, and Chindit was too good for them, too quick for them, and picked them off quite readily. And it was just an impressive performance. 7 weeks off since. He could be a serious horse. And to be honest, as good as Al Bashir was first time up, you've always, in my mind, got to pick form over potential, particularly when the horse with the form also has an awful lot of potential. And he just deserves to be favourite, and I think he'll probably win again, to be honest. I say that we don't know how good Al Bashir is. You are stabbing in the dark a little bit with him. He could be a top notcher, couldn't he? But so could Chindit, and at the moment I'd have to have Chindit as favourite given the strength of his form.
Yeah, must admit I was surprised when I flashed at the bet, and it's the first time I'd looked at the prices, looked at the race, just looked at the price for the first time, and I didn't expect to see Al Bashir as 13-8 favourite, which is as short as he is in some places. Now, some people have got him a bit bigger, but for all the reasons you said, on form, Chindit should be favourite. So if the point of listening to this, you can still get 9-4, 5-2 about Chindit, he's probably a bit of a value bet in troops.
Probably won't be able to. I fully expect he'll be favourite.
Yeah.
Mudge Bar, the Charlie Hills horse, was very good at Newmarket as well. He's a danger. But yeah, Chindit's form just couldn't be any better, could it, as it stands? So no.
Quick look at anything else on the card. There's a nursery which I wasn't particularly all over. That's at 405. I really didn't like the look of that small field 1.5 handicap. I can't believe there's only 5 runners declared for that. 35 grand handicap. And
is it really?
Yeah, there's 5 horses turning up.
Unbelievable.
I know.
Why hasn't Mark Johnston got a runner in it?
No idea. It just seems very, very strange that no one's bothered to run anything.
It's nuts, isn't it? Like we all
about prize money.
Complain about prize money, and there is a right to complain about prize money. But you get a 35 grand race and there's 5 runners turn up. It makes everyone that complains about it basically look like an idiot. because
Yeah.
how can you when there's a 35 grand race and there's only 5 people willing to take the chance on a fair track like Donny, good meeting. You know, why would that race have 5 runners? If it was run at York, it'd have 15, 16 runners. Makes no sense.
Yeah. Mad.
Bonkers. Bonkers. It's a 3-year-old up race as well. I wish we had
Yeah.
some.
Do you know, tell you what, Mark, we need to find something for it next year. Look at this. 2 horses ran in it last year.
Really? Is it a 35 grand race? You're not misreading it. It's not 3.5 grand, is it, or something?
No, it's 35 grand, 21, nearly 22,000 to the winner. 2 horses ran in it last year. Year before that, 5. Year before that, 6. Year before that, 6. Then 7. Last time it had a double figure field was 10 years ago.
Well, it's it is balmy.
It's actually last year it was only worth 12.5 grand. So could see why no one turned up.
Yeah.
But they've actually put the year before that it was as well. It's one of the few races that's worth a load more money than it ever was.
Yeah.
No one's bothered with it.
But it does annoy me stuff like this, because it's just like, well, you know, it's like people have not looked at the prize money. And if you're going to complain about prize money, make sure that you look at the prize money and fill those races up that are actually worth good money and support them, because they deserve to be supported, to give any credibility to any argument to do with prize money, you know. And it is irritating when you get a 35 grand race that's eligible to umpteen horses and it's not supported, and you could find it, you know, and then people turn around and say, but you put the prize money on and people don't turn up.
Exactly.
Anyway, that's a fact. There you go.
I didn't like the race from a betting point of view anyway, not really. Wasn't a race that I liked. I thought that of the others, I wasn't mad on the nursery, but the mile handicap, first race on the card, looks like they'll go a fairly good gallop. That Matthew Flinders, he's got some really good form, and he wasn't bothered by a drop back in trip really last time out, and I think a well-run race over this trip will be something that really suits him on a straight mile like Donny as well. I think there's a good chance that he runs really well here.
Yeah, no, he's a horse with loads of talent, isn't he? And his win came at Donny. He's undoubtedly a well handicapped horse. I think off 92, there's more in him. It's just a case of whether he's quite sort of ready and tuned in. Big day. We mentioned Ray Dawson already. He's got a wee dram to ride for Kevin Frost. Looks well bought, doesn't he? At 37 grand at the sales last month, on the back of a good run as well for Alan King. So, you know, he's another good ride on the card for Ray Dawson. As for the nursery that you mentioned, I mean, it is an open race. The horse Lone Eagle of Martin Meads I think is a much better horse than his handicap mark of 84. Whether he's quite ready to show it over a mile as a 2-year-old, I wouldn't be certain. But it is quite interesting in itself that they've lent towards going down the handicap route, because when I was working at Goodwood the other week and he got off the mark and he only just edged out and edged out Oman late on, the trainer's representative was on the track afterwards sort of saying, we'll see what the handicapper does. We might look at the Zetland Stakes at Newmarket, which is a 1.25 mile Group 3. And is it? I think it's a Group 3 race, 1.25 miles. And they've obviously been very, very happy with the handicap mark that he's been given, 84. He's a colt by Galileo. His debut was really promising when he just failed to run down a horse with the benefit of the previous run. So he will be well handicapped. D'Souza's the right man, if anyone, to be positive on a horse running over a slightly inadequate trip. And I think he'll run very well. It's just, you know, there might be something a little bit pacier than him, but he's just, you know, as I say, he's definitely been considered for group races, and they've clearly been lulled in by that handicap mark.
Yep, absolutely. So that's all the races at Donny. Just 2 horses you won't probably have seen this mark yet. So I know you've been busy earlier on today at Haydock, but there's 2 horses from our tracker that are in over the weekend. We've got Dapper Man up at Musselburgh on Saturday. I think he's got a great chance. And there's a horse called Star of Orion who's in the sales race at the Curragh on Sunday. He shaped very well at York, going a real good gallop last time out, and he's the second highest on official ratings in that race. It's a sales race, obviously not a handicap, so he must have a reasonable chance. So look at have a look at those too, see what you think of those particular races. But so far as Donny is concerned, best bet of the Ledger there for you?
Well, if you can get 10-1 about English King, which he is at the time of talking, and I must admit, I suspect he won't be when people are listening, because it stands out like a sore thumb as being way overpriced. And usually when that happens, they crash in price because plenty of other people notice that it's wrong. But I can't have it that he'll go off that sort of price in the Ledger.
No.
You know, it's difficult, isn't it? Because the markets will all change before people are listening. But Chindit must have a pretty good chance in the Champagne for all the, you know, it's that's not an easy race to weigh up because you've got such unexposed horses chasing him up in the market. But I think the best bet has to be, as we sit here now, it has to be English King for the Ledger, and I'd back him each way, to be honest.
Yeah,
if he's anything bigger than sort of 6-1, he's a good price. I think.
Yeah, I think he should be about 11-2, 6-1.
Yeah, I'd have been pricing him up around the 5-1 mark, I think, and I wouldn't be surprised if he went off that sort of price. So let's see.
I'm going to go English King each way as my best bet of Donny at the weekend as well. So that's it. That's the St Ledger preview. Just a quick reminder before we go: Winners Enclosure app and the website for all the latest offers from your bookmakers, the latest tips from the fellas at the Winners Enclosure, some preview, there's some news, there's some exclusive content. So that's well worth downloading the app or visiting the website. But for the time being, good luck with your bets over the course of the weekend. Enjoy it. It's an absolute belter from both Doncaster and Irish Champions weekend as well. Hopefully you find a few winners. Mark, I'll speak to you again soon. But thanks for listening.
See you later. Thanks, everybody.